All right, so pretty big news that I think is going to sway a lot of voters over to the Trump camp. Trump didn't just grab endorsements from RFK Jr. and Tulsi, he officially added them to his presidential transition team. Okay. This means that they will help select the next government. This is actually huge news. Here's the story of the New York Times. Trump to put Kennedy and Gabbard on his transition team. Donald J. Trump plans to name his former rival, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, a one-time Democrat, as honorary co-chairs of a presidential transition team that will help him select the policies and personnel of any second Trump administration, according to a campaign senior advisor. This is actually really big news because you know that RFK Jr. and Tulsi are not going to be okay with certain people that Trump surrounded himself with the first time around. And maybe Trump has learned a lot of lessons from that first time around. Maybe he's realizing, I put in guys like Mike Pompeo, I put in guys like John Bolton. He put in a lot of people that he thought he could trust. And ultimately, they ended up being just establishment actors, really hawkish, really warmongery. So with RFK Jr. and Tulsi being part of the transition team, you could bet that he's going to be putting in a lot of those truly anti-war. Now, when it comes to Israel, I get it. That's going to be the one, that's the big caveat. That's the big elephant in the room with all of them, is that they're going to be still very staunchly pro-Israel. But they might try to avoid war with Iran. They might be on the page of, look, we don't want to go down that path. We don't want to antagonize the Middle East. We want peace. If they're pro-peace and they want to do whatever it takes to be peaceful, even if they're going to be super pro-Israel, okay. But this will still be a major, I think, shakeup for the next White House if Trump actually wins. And I think this is going to I think a lot of people are going to vote for him now that they're hearing this. Here is Kennedy talking about it on Tucker Carlson's show.
I'm going to work to get him elected. And I'm working with the campaign. We're working on policy issues together. I've been asked to go onto the transition team and, to help pick the people who will be running the government. And I'm looking forward to that. And I'm going to fight. I don't know what would happen to me if we lose.
Well, that's kind of it. I mean, a lot of people I know personally and I'm friends with have gone to prison. One of them's in prison right now, Pavel Durov. There are others. What happens if he loses to you?
If
Trump loses and Kamala Harris becomes president?
Oh, I don't know. But I mean, I never really think about that. What I think is,
good.
What I think is, okay, here's what I got to do today. And, get up every day and say, reporting for duty, sir, and then go do that. And, nothing's a crisis. Everything's a task, right? And so that's what I'm going to be, kind of a happy warrior. I know what I have to do, so I'm going to do it.
Good for him. Good for him. His family has come out just being really awful. Kerry Kennedy, his sister, came out and said, I disavow and I disassociate myself with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He's shaming the family and dragging my father's name through the mud, basically, is what she was saying. And not only are they disagreeing with him politically, but they're saying that they're basically disowning him as a family member. He's going up against a lot. This is a man who is not afraid to battle. He is a true, look, I know we do not agree when it comes to Israel at all. There is something going on there when it comes to Israel and why so many of these people who used to have a more measured stance, like Tulsi Gabbard, who back in, if you read her tweets from 2017, 2018, she was pro-peace for the two sides. She actually advocated for human rights for Palestinians, suddenly changes her tune quite a bit. And now she's staunchly pro-Israel. Same thing with RFK Jr. He just has taken an extremely pro-Israel stance. That is, I get it. None of us can really fully understand that or grasp what has gone on there. I personally think, they don't need to blackmail a person individually and say, look, we've got all this bad stuff on you. You flew on Epstein's plane 3 times. You are on we've got blackmail on you personally. They should the thing that would, probably shouldn't say this out loud, but what would work on me, not that I want to give them any ideas, but I'm not planning on running for office, but it would be to threaten a family member, if they threaten somebody you love, if they say, look, we're going to expose your child or your parent or your sibling or, somebody that you care about, somebody that you feel protective over, if they come to you and say, yeah, we don't got dirt on you, but we've got some, we've been snooping around with our really high-tech surveillance tech that we've been developing and using on you. And since we're not the CIA, we're a foreign government, we could do this to you. Then if they're going to come at you with some sort of blackmail on a family, I mean, look, I go down this road thinking about blackmail because it doesn't make sense any other way. Why Tulsi and RFK Jr. are suddenly super pro-Israel, or maybe maybe RFK has been pro-Israel for a really long time. It just goes against all of the other stances. It just doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense even for people who are working on his campaign. Maybe they're still working on his campaign, because I'm not sure what's going on with that. I don't know if he still has a campaign that's running, that has people working for it, or if he's completely suspended the operation entirely. I guess I should find that out. But, a lot of people are really confused by his stance. That's the one thing that is just completely inconsistent. Totally and completely inconsistent. Now with Trump, it's also inconsistent, but Jared Kushner is his son-in-law. And Jared Kushner makes a lot of money off of settlements being built in the West Bank. And Jared Kushner his family's very good friends with Benjamin Netanyahu. And Jared Kushner is a raging Zionist. So I could understand why Trump would, from his family ties, want to do things to help his favorite child, Ivanka, and her husband and their children. That maybe makes some sense, I guess. But anyway, I digress. Them still being on the transition team, even though there's that pro-Israel inconsistency, the rest of it could end up with, we could end up with a seriously anti-intervention, anti-regime change, a government that is really going to steer us away from the hot war we're staring down with Russia. And a government that is also looking at making peace with enemies. That's who you make peace with. Not your friends. You don't need to make peace with your friends. We need to make peace with enemies. And here are people, a group of people who are willing to sit down with the other side and hear them out. Remember, Tulsi famously went and sat down with Assad and had a meeting with them. And people criticized her for that. Dennis Kucinich went with her. There were people that believe in peace. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. believes in that peace. Trump sat down with Kim Jong-un, met with Kim Jong-un. These are people that I think, despite the big elephant in the room, they, on every other point with foreign policy, would be way better. And I mean leaps and bounds better than where we're at right now. Leaps and bounds better. And from there, when that path is paved, maybe we get an even better one next time. As that precedent is set, as people are starting to think in that way, if we had a Trump administration for 4 years, paving the way towards these peaceful interactions with countries that were once adversaries, we might end up with the next group of, because it's not going to be Biden or Trump, maybe Kamala Harris. Doubt it if she loses. It'd probably be somebody else at the Democrats. Maybe by then it would be AOC. Right? It looks like they're really, truly grooming her for that. We could end up with the next generation, the next round being also going down that path, realizing that it's extremely popular with the American base. All right, let's play another clip from this. Kennedy goes on to talk about Mike Pompeo. Now, this is somebody I absolutely hope that with Trump and with Trump selecting RFK Jr. and Tulsi as part of the transition team, my hope is Mike Pompeo is thrown out of the arena and told he is no longer welcome. Him and guys like John Bolton. We do not need these people around. Mike Pompeo was somebody who tried to kill Julian Assange. He would not allow, Trump wanted to pardon Julian or drop the charges against Julian Assange. And Mike Pompeo said, don't you dare. Highly protective of the CIA, loves the CIA, does anything to protect the CIA and all of the CIA secrets. This is not somebody we want around. He's deep state. He is the actual walking embodiment of what deep state is. And yet Trump made him Secretary of State. Remember that. So hopefully this new team would make it to where that doesn't happen again. So here's RFK Jr. talking about CIA Director Mike Pompeo begging Donald Trump. He said that Trump told him, Mike Pompeo begged him to not release the assassination files of his uncle, JFK. Watch this.
I was astonished that Trump didn't declassify them because he promised to during the campaign.
That was Mike Pompeo who did that.
Yeah, and that I talked to President Trump for the first time about that this week. And
What did he say?
He said that Mike Pompeo begged him to, and I don't think I'm telling tales out of school here.
No,
I think he told the same thing to you.
That's
right?
true.
But he said Mike Pompeo called him and said this would be a catastrophe to release these. You need to not do it.
Somebody get rid of Mike Pompeo. And I mean, I'm not talking about violence or anything like that, but just make sure this guy cannot step anywhere near any government or the CIA at all. We don't need these types of secrets. This was not the first time this was mentioned. RFK Jr. actually appeared on Tucker Carlson about a year ago, and they talked about the same thing. Watch this.
He said, when I was at the CIA, I did not do what I should have done to fix that agency. And he said, and he was expressing regret. And he said, and then he turned to me and looked me dead in the eye. And he said, the entire upper echelon of that agency is made up of individuals who do not believe in the democratic institutions of the United States of America. That's a quote.
But so it was Mike Pompeo who convinced Trump not to release the file. And it was a guy who worked for Mike Pompeo texted me the day after I revealed that those files showed CIA complicity in your uncle's death, which they do, because I talked to someone who read them. And I said that on Fox News. And I got a text from a guy who works for Mike Pompeo informing me that I had just broken federal law and that anyone who had told me that was a felon. Because we had revealed classified information. And I said, wait a second, that classified information suggests the U.S. government was involved in the murder of an American president. Yeah, that's Mike Pompeo's position on that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit weird for him to say, I think.
Well, there's 1 billion documents classified.
Yeah, I know.
Top secret. So, they can call it, they can stamp that stamp on anything they want to. That's a lawyer's
incredible
trick, to put.
And he was also behind convincing Trump not to pardon Assange.
Yeah, well, that confirms my earlier assessment of Mike Pompeo.
That's interesting. You like him? No, it says a lot.
Let's hope that he maintains that line of thinking if he's on the Trump transition team, because we don't want to see Mike Pompeo anywhere near anything, in particular the CIA, the State Department, any intelligence agency whatsoever. He just needs to go retire. Just put him out to pasture. Mike Pompeo, what do we make of this, of him saying to RFK Jr. during a dinner, I did not do what I should have done to fix the agency, and expressing that the entire upper echelon of the agency is made up of individuals who do not believe in the democratic institutions of the United States of America? What do we make of him even saying that when he is the guy, as Tucker then pointed out, refused to allow the documents, the JFK assassination documents, to be put out there in the public, saying that it would be catastrophic for the CIA? What does that tell you right there? That tells you the CIA, our spy agency, offed a sitting American president. And you don't want to let the American people know this? Why? Because the CIA is above the law. They're above the institution, the office of the president. Is that why? Was he afraid for his own life? Did somebody threaten him? Did they say, look, Mike, if you do this, what happened to JFK is going to happen to you. We can make this happen. Yeah, you might be the director of the CIA. Yeah, nobody cares. There's entire black ops going on inside of the CIA that nobody has control over, and they will do anything to run this country and maintain control. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, here we are, our mind goes wild. And of course, why wouldn't it go wild when they're not releasing their secrets? When you keep on holding on to secrets, your mind goes wild. But the fact that they're holding on to those secrets verifies why our minds are going wild, because clearly they're hiding something, and that hiding something and saying that it would be catastrophic for the CIA is that the CIA was complicit or even involved in killing a sitting United States president. That is the biggest news story of this nation ever. That would be the finding out that our spy agency killed a sitting president would be the greatest scandal that has ever hit this country. Of all the scandals, of all the news stories, that would be the biggest. But of course, when the documents came out that showed the CIA was complicit, to some level, it barely made headline news. In fact, I don't even know if it made a single headline. People were talking about it in independent media, but the rest of the media just turned a blind eye to it. Why is that? Because we've known for a long time, there have been reports coming from people who are in the know that the mainstream media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all these mainstream media outlets have CIA embedded in them, or they're taking directives from the CIA. They're CIA ops. So the CIA makes sure that they don't run those kinds of stories that would smear the CIA. The CIA needs to be completely dismantled. I hope that part of the transition with Trump is, I mean, look, I get that RFK Jr. would love to be in charge of health and human, the director of, or the secretary of health and human services, which would put him in charge of the CDC and the FDA and the NIH and all of those wonderful things, the Surgeon General, all of those things. That would be great to see him in that role. I think, though, he could find somebody else who's aligned with him and his way of thinking that could actually be in that role. And I would love to see RFK Jr. I would love to see him as the director of the CIA. And I would love to watch him dismantle it, and just say, this is I'm the director of the CIA, and I'm here to end the CIA and put myself out of a job. That would be the most RFK Jr. thing to do, and it would be so appropriate, and it would be just, I mean, it would be poetic justice to see that. So that's what I'm rooting for. I think, Tulsi Gabbard, I think she's I think she would be a good fit for, she's probably looked at for UN ambassador, something along those lines. Maybe the Department of Defense, it is good, but I think because she's active military, they have to kind of make a exception if you're in the military, or if you've recently been in the military, they kind of have to make an exception for you there. But this is refreshing to find out that Trump is actually going in this direction, this truly anti-establishment. I get they have their quirks and they're not totally anti-establishment, but a much more anti-establishment path. This is a good thing. And I think this is going to persuade a lot of people. I think a lot of people are potentially going to be voting for Trump. All right, guys, comment down below your thoughts, or you could also email me, Kim@KimIverson.com. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys for watching The Kim Iverson Show.